Buddy old pal.
Hey.
We're back at it. The background looks a little greener than usual. I think I changed the position of that light behind us. But anyways, we're doing another one of these Chatcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Today I thought I wanted to talk about Plateaus. Basically, what was the worst one that you remember, and then, what you did maybe to deal with it, and how we could deal with it as artists. So, from my perspective on this, since the trend has been that I go first, because I usually come up with these questions, I feel that it's fair and appropriate.
Yeah.
And I like to run things. The kingdom and the Lord of the kingdom likes to manage things in fairness. This banter is getting out of control.
I was going to make dad jokes about plateaus being geographic features, but I held back, so.
We're off to a great start. No, so we're going to rein this in and get serious about this. But so, plateaus, when was the worst one that I remember dealing with? I've thought about this for almost a week now since I came up with this question, and I don't really have that great of an answer about when my worst plateau was. I do remember recent kind of moments of just writer's block.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for our project. For what we're doing, honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. For what we're doing, I really feel very motivated and really easy to express what I need to do, because it's not so much that I'm making this artistic expression as a guitarist, a musician, as a producer. It's more so that, I've been given a task to make a song fit this thing. And it's been easier for me to produce content, frankly, from my perspective. Writing songs and coming up with ideas and stuff like that has been easier. And the ideas that I have for, the Guy Wolf project, for the Kara project, which isn't even out yet, I always forget, because we film things in a different timeline, that will be out when we're talking about this. So
okay.
Yeah, with the Kara project and everything, it's I got all these ideas that I haven't even really put down, but they're there. So if these IPs grow ever, I've got them. I've got all sorts of ideas that fit into it. But as far as me as a musician, I've kind of experienced these moments of writer's block, more so than I will say that I've had a plateau in my skill level. And I think that comes from my natural curiosity, where I just like to try to learn as much as I can. And so, picking up classical guitar one year randomly, recently, a recent example is getting back into keyboard, things like that. I don't ever feel like I get stuck, or if I plateaued a guitar, for instance, for several years in my mid-20s, let's say I plateaued there, but that's because I shifted focus on learning how to play drums. So I didn't plateau as a musician, but maybe as a guitar player, you can say that. And I guess that would probably be the largest period of time when I have had a plateau, as far as guitar would go, is maybe in my mid-20s, when I was focusing on learning music production more and drums. But see, I don't even really classify that, because one of the tips that I give to aspiring artists and musicians, and my current guitar student, I have one, and what I was explaining to him is that you need to, and I think I said this in an earlier Chatcast, you need to pull yourself back to say, well, you're not a metalhead, you're a guitarist. And really,
right.
You're not a guitarist, you're a musician. And I've had that mindset for a while, and that's really helped me, because that got me into, I'm going to learn something from funk guys. I want to learn something from blues guys. I want to learn something, from this and that. But I will say that I will count, in my instance here, to give you an example of a plateau, would be writer's block that I experienced. And while I don't have a definite time frame for this, I can just remember when it's happened. And now that I've experienced it more than once, I can quantify it a little bit better. And what it is that it's when what I consider to be, what's currently tasteful, what's currently the thing I'm vibing on, what I like, is changed or is changing, and I'm not being honest with it. And that's what the cause of my writer's block, or my plateau at that moment is. It's I'm not being honest with the fact that, maybe I don't like the characteristic harsh vocals on metal anymore.
Right.
Maybe something like that. Like it's like lately I've been listening to metal bands that don't really scream. They're still really, really heavy, but they don't really have anything that has these screaming style of vocals that are associated with the genre. And so, there's an example. So then when I come to grips with the fact that, well, maybe my taste has changed, that tends to be the cause of my plateau or my writer's block, is that, like what I like has shifted, and I'm not being honest with myself as an artist and as a consumer of the art, of what's going on in me internally. And so there's a couple of good nuggets in there for aspiring artists and musicians alike to consider, is that be honest with yourself at all points in time. Because if you aren't, you're going to cause yourself to have a bout of stagnation. And never leave anything off the table. Like maybe you were gung-ho and sold out on a particular style or a particular genre, like just hip-hop is your thing, man. But then all of a sudden you just took a crazy about face and you're like, you know what? I like punk now.
Yeah.
Like, what made me think about that was you bringing up R. Kelly, but
Not R. Kelly.
I just dadded it so hard. What's that guy you like, son? R. Kelly? No, Machine Gun Kelly. But anyways, or say, you like folk music, but now you're changing to where you're like, man, I'm really getting into fusion jazz. And if you aren't honest with yourself as a musician, that's when you create this stagnation. That's when you are an artist, period. That's when you create this stagnation in yourself. So anyways, I kind of rambled on and meandered in different directions on that, but I still feel like that I was effective and offered some insight. What is your moment to where, maybe for you it is a specific moment where you felt like your skills kind of just flatlined unintentionally, or you had a moment of lack of inspiration? What's the KD perspective on this?
So to me, like, the creative process is kind of like a cycle anyways, and there are a lot of little like trigger moments in lack of creativity or writer's block that don't necessarily mean you plateaued. It could be a different spot. There's something that creative people refer to as being in the gap, where what you're learning, your skills haven't yet matched up to it. So what's in your head and what you're able to create with your hands, there's a gap in there, and that you haven't matched that yet. And a lot of people get disappointed and hate what they're making, and that causes them to go on to what they think is a plateau, but all it really means is they just need to practice a little bit more, and then those two things will meet. But every now and then you get to a point too where you're not actually ingesting like other content as far as like art goes. So you're not looking at other creative people, or you're not you're too, like you were talking about, too zoomed into a genre maybe, rather than looking at I swallowed some of my own hair while I was talking to you.
Attack of the Killer Hair.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club.
I couldn't really make it out of that one. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
So maybe as far as an artist goes, you're looking at too much like hand-drawn letters, and you're focusing on that style of art, and you're looking at that, and you're trying to make something else. And so what you're looking at is not necessarily like helping your brain grow in the direction that you're going with your actual projects. There's all kinds of things like that, but then there's what I would consider to actually be the plateau point, when you're not in the gap anymore. Your skills and your skills and what you're learning meet up, and you have a nice little run of putting out content that you're proud of, that you feel confident in, and then like you just kind of lose steam. And you sit on top and you're like, yeah, I could do that again. And that just becomes automatic, but it doesn't like feel good to produce it. Or like you just you hit this point where you don't really feel like making stuff, like it just doesn't feel like the content you're putting out is satisfying, even though it's good. And so to me, that's when I hit those plateaus, is like when I'm making something that it's like, this is good, but I don't know, it doesn't feel like I'm growing or that I'm doing something, or that I'm challenging myself anymore. And so that's what I usually do. And this is, I don't know if this is right, but this is what I do is I just wait it out. So like maybe that means, so if I notice with side projects and stuff like that, you know, I'm doing like, say I'm doing 8 different things, I'll focus on, well, I can't drop this because I'm dependent on here. I can't drop this because, you know, that's what pays money and I need to pay bills. But these other things I can let kind of trickle off so that I can focus on as little bit as possible, and I can sit in the pocket basically and just kind of coast until, you know, I figure something out. And the whole time I'm sitting there on that plateau and I'm just focusing on the bare minimum of what I need to do creatively, I'm looking at all kinds of different art on, you know, Instagram. I follow all kinds of different artists, people who are graphic designers, people who are painters. I follow people who do sculpture. You know, that's not even an area that I'm particularly like experienced in, but it's something that, I don't know, that realm offers something to like visuals and stuff. So being
that's like me listening to fusion jazz drummers constantly. I have a bizarre addiction to those YouTube channels.
Right.
And I just go nuts on them.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm sorry. I kind of interrupted your train of thought when you were talking about consuming these other.
No, but it's funny because we're saying the same thing, but from different like mediums. So the art of the ears with music and the art of the eyes with, you know, visual art is like you still kind of use the same processes. I just kind of ride it out and keep my feet moving with the stuff that I have to get done. But I'm honest with myself, like, okay, let me just look at creative stuff and see what happens, you know, don't expect, okay, then I'm going to get right back into where I was. Be like, okay, maybe I'm about to go in a different direction, you know, maybe this plateau is like, I'm about to jump off from it and go into this genre of art, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I deal with this. I just wait it out, but at the same time, with the creative stuff I am currently making, I try and bear it down to just the stuff that needs to be done that I'm counted on for. And I try and take a break from the extracurriculars of art for a little bit. And rather than making stuff, I just kind of look at art.
Yeah.
I just kind of view it and
be a consumer.
I become a consumer of art for a little bit. And then at some point, what inevitably happens is a project comes along where somebody's like, hey, can you do this? And I'm like, okay, well, there's something I saw that like that would be really cool here. And then you get that wave of creative direction, not necessarily inspiration, like the emotional high of it does happen sometimes, but sometimes it's just the excitement of, oh, like I saw somebody do that over here and now I have the opportunity to do that and I've never done that before, so maybe I can use that element in here, and then you start the whole creative cycle back over.
I dig this, man. This is a cool combo. Couple of things that I want to point out here as we wrap this up. One thing is that I'm going to second what you said about letting it ride out, because as you mentioned that, I remember now a principle that I like to do, and I shared when I used to teach guitar, and then I currently have the one student that I keep talking about, is that when I write a song, even if I like it, but I know I need to add more, or if I don't like it and I still know I need to add more, I have this principle where I let it rest for a day or two. And then when you open that project up again and start jamming on it, sometimes it's like this giant floodgate opens up. So I have this rest on it kind of a period too. And another thing that I noticed through this talk that we just had is that we have to remember as artists that we're also still a consumer. And we need to respect that quality of us, because we were such a rabid consumer that we were inspired to become a producer.
Yeah.
So that I think is the thing here that needs to be like respected and alluded to in this process. Anyways, this is almost 15 minutes long. That's longer than I intend for these to be. So we're signing out. Adios.